Hi, I'm Three Gnomes. I'm an indie game developer, and if you've been watching any of my past devlogs, you'll know that I've been working on a psychological horror slash 3D platformer. And I've been working on that for a long time. And this will be my 20th devlog and also my last devlog. Because I'm so excited to say that in less than 3 weeks, on October 17th of this year, Toby's Topsy Tale is scheduled to be released. There are multiple trailers up right now. You can go and watch those. If you're interested, you can go wishlist on Steam directly from the description of this video. I'm just so excited, and if you're like me, you watch a lot of devlog content here on YouTube, and it gets to the point where it feels like very few of these games you kind of get invested in ever come out, and it's kind of disheartening. And that's why I'm so excited that if you've been following these devlogs, this game is coming out. And considering this is the first indie game I've ever made and released on Steam, it would mean so much to me if you would go and help me make this game everything that it can be. Wishlist, and then when the game comes out, hopefully you'll consider buying if it's your type of thing. But anyways, here's the last devlog, where I'm going to talk about some of the last things that I did without spoiling too much of the end game of this game. So first off, there was one more level that I really needed to get done. It was essentially a ritual area where you did something. It's so hard to talk about any of this game at this point without spoiling things. So I guess here's your spoiler warning. I'll not spoil big things, but if you want to go into this completely fresh, maybe don't finish this one. So there is an area where you need to perform some sort of ritual. That's hinted at through a lot of the in-game dialogue as well, so it's not too big of a spoiler. And of course, the first step is just making a blank level. And then I put in one of the things that I had modeled that's a part of the ritual, which are these pillar type things with a crystal on top. And then I did a lot of work. I'm going to skip through all of the little nitty gritty details of the specifics of level design, because I've talked about this same type of stuff again and again and again. But essentially the end game was to create what appeared to be a sort of forest with this ritual site in the middle of it. So I put in the work. I laid down the terrain, the grass. I did use some Unity assets for the trees, which is something I try not to do. If you're someone who uses Unity assets, again, I'm not attacking you or anything. I've used a little bit, but I prefer to make my own assets for anything that I think is very specific. But anyways, trees, flowers, if they're just basic, I don't mind just taking what Unity has to offer. So anyways, I made this forest area, and I think one of the big things that will distinguish your levels from just being a forest to being something that is very, very unique and eye-catching is lighting. So I made sure that the lighting was very dark and intense and foreboding, similar to another level that I've created previously. And then when you mix that with the light that's going to come off of these torches, then that really creates a sort of ominous effect, especially in tandem with your flashlight. And then next, now that I had this ritual area sort of set up, at least in terms of the basic look, next I had to make it so that there was the gate. And I'm not going to spoil too much about that, except for it can be activated if you... if you play the game and you do things I'm not going to spoil here, you can activate the gate. And that was a really beautiful thing to create. I really had this crystal clear image in my mind of how I wanted it to look, and it came out perfect. I love how it looked, and that transports you to somewhere that I can't talk about. Do you see why it's been so long since I've made another devlog? It's like half of the content that I've made would completely spoil the game, because I've been so close to being done that it's in-game content. It's content that would just ruin your experience if I told you too much about it. Or at least ruin the end of the game. Right, so we got this cool gate, we got this forest area, cool. Now you can perform a ritual and blah 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 blah. So let's cut to something else. Next, I wanted to add in a mechanic with the freezer level and a unlockable weapon that you can get, which is the sort of lava forge candy cane. And I wanted to make it so that there were all these ice blocks in the freezer level that you could essentially only interact with if you had this specific candy cane unlocked. And essentially you could bust characters out. So I started with just the one over here with Kevin and tested that out. And now you could free him. Looked good. Cool. And so that was another quick little mechanic that I could throw in that would just give you a little bit more to do. After that, I had to make another level, which is sort of a transitional level between one bigger one and another bigger one. This one was actually supposed to go between the pantry and the kitchen, and essentially this is one of the early tutorial type areas, so it's more meant to help you learn the mechanics of the 3D platforming. So as you can kind of see, I originally started playing with this kind of abstract, just pieces of pantry material and wood in open space, which is something that I do with later transitional areas. But I didn't like that so early on because it just has to do with the narrative and how your character perceives the world. And I wanted it to feel more like you were actually inside the walls of your home. So I put in walls to kind of give the feel of this being a kind of more well-lit place. I added in all of these little fireflies that I made, which I thought were kind of cute, and just gave a little bit more natural lighting to the area. I also put in Osborne so that you could get the upgrades that you need to actually complete this level right here, rather than having to wait to the fridge world, which you previously had to. So now you could get your upgrades, you could platform up, learn the mechanics a little bit better, and then after this it would pop you back into the top part of the kitchen. Cool, so this level was fundamentally done, except for there was one other character that I wanted to put in, which is, his name's Wilfred. He is a daddy long legs, and he is the reason why there are coins everywhere. And he was super fun to make, and I love how his area ended up looking. Probably one of my favorite things I've ever made. It was really incredible. And yeah, let me know what you think of him and this entire level in the comments. So next up, I made a change that my partner had been just constantly begging me to do, which was to fix how the fridge world lighting looked. So essentially this was like one of the first levels I ever made, and I felt like I had to just do classic, oh, the sky is blue, the grass is green, which you don't have to do. And so it was kind of very basic looking, and it was very stark lighting. So my partner prompted me to try and play around with other skyboxes and color schemes. So I did. We ended up loving this kind of pinkish sky, and I thought this just made this fridge level pop. Because there's this version of the fridge level, which is very friendly and colorful and bright and happy, and I needed it to contrast more with this very stark, dark version that you can find yourself in later in the game. And so I think this change just really made things pop, and I'm so glad she kept pushing me to do it. Next up, I made just a very, very basic version of what the opening menu of the game would look like. It started it with just a play button, nothing too complicated, intro, you know, all of that type of stuff. And then I'll come back to that later, because I essentially just wanted to have a placeholder for now. And while I was taking my girlfriend's advice, I went ahead and fixed another thing that she despised, which was this house and the way that it had been made. Again, I tried to cut corners, and that was a mistake because it looked like crap. So essentially, I just made very flat images of 4 sides of a house and just tried to use that in this 2D study area, and just to see if it would work, and it didn't. And so I actually did take her advice and go in and model an actual house and redo some of the art so it would line up a little bit and actually look 3-dimensional despite being 2-dimensional. From there, I went ahead and started messing with the coins that are going to be in this study level. I'm calling it a study level, but it's really kind of a 2D level in 3D space. I don't know why I'm trying so hard to describe it. You can see it. I love how it looked, but I wanted to make sure that things are really cohesive. So I went ahead and took the coins and I essentially just made a 2D texture to go on them so that they would look similar but fit the style of the level better. And this level is sort of like a foil for the yarn level, where they have a very similar layout to some degree and certain recurring themes and parts of the level. So I went ahead and took the same bridge and restructured it so that it would fit this level better. And I did the same thing with the well, and now you had 2 separate things that were from the yarn level that were repurposed and reformatted to fit this level and the style of it better. And I had a lot of fun actually redesigning them in that way. And there's a lot more I can show you about the study, but I'm going to cut away for a while. I'm essentially going through this in the way that I did it, rather than necessarily showing you, oh, this is everything I did for the study, and this is everything I did for the fridge world. I'm essentially just letting you see my process a little bit more, even if it might feel a little more chaotic for you. And that's something that I would advise a lot of new indie game developers to do, is don't get too attached to one area. When you start to feel burnout, if you can get yourself excited about doing something else in your game, do it. Progress is progress. So next up, I kind of jumped over and redid the intro section of the first level a little bit, where essentially it would pan over to you and the type of lens would change to kind of give a fisheye effect a little bit, to show the environment more and to play with your perception. And then from there, I went on to adding tutorial messages that would pop up to just give you little bits of information, little hints on how to play the game a little bit better, and that wasn't too complicated. One of those tutorial message pop-ups actually ended up being for the ice blocks that you can break, to let you know that you can do that, or at least hint that you can do that. From here, I started playing around more with the asylum area and doing a bunch of stuff in here that I probably can't even show you. But again, I love how these levels look, and it was a really good time getting to go in and actually spend more effort making them look as wonderful as they can possibly look. So I can't wait for you to get in the game, which is coming out in like 3 weeks. It's still crazy to get to actually hear what you think of it and see it. It's wild. But yeah, the asylum. Not going to spoil too much about that. I went in and added some more to the study, which I can't talk about, so go play the game as soon as it comes out, so you'll just know. But yeah, here's a look at it. At this point, I finally was able to bring in the other voice actor that's been working with me on this project to record the therapist lines for this entire game. And that allowed me to finally really get things going in terms of adding the narration and the real narrative to this game. And of course, it all starts with the very beginning of the game, so I went ahead and added that in, and while I was at it, I finished the kind of start menu and the lead in to the game. I went into the bathroom, added the sock snake so that he only pops up out of the drain when you defeat the spider. I sound nuts trying to describe what what happens in this game, which I guess fits. Yeah, spent some time in the bathroom, moved back on to fixing some of the stuff that the playtesters had pointed out to me. Specifically, like, there's this cabinet and it's kind of difficult right at the beginning. You go into it and the camera kind of locks up inside there. It's hard to maneuver it, it's confusing, and it's right at the beginning of the game, so it feels really jarring for your camera to immediately get stuck. So I went ahead and just made it so that now when you go in there, the camera shifts and locks in place at this kind of disturbing angle. And then when you come out, it obviously shifts back to normal. And with that, there was only one thing left to do, which was to finish up putting the build on Steam, which was a whole thing, a massive undertaking. Honestly, the entire Steam process was a whole lot. I'm going to make another video about all of that at some point, talking you through the types of things that you're going to have to prepare for, both mentally and literally, in order to do that, how I got through it. But yeah, I'll just cut through the Steam stuff and just say I put the game on Steam. And with the game on Steam, I was finally ready to do this and release the date that the game is coming out. I wanted it to I wanted it to be as close to when I announced it as possible because I'm so excited and I can't wait. So yeah, that's what I worked on. That's my game. That's Toby's Topsy Tale. This is Devlog 20. This is the final Devlog. It's wild. Yeah, I'm gonna make a video at some point that's like a compilation of all of the devlogs, like all 20 of them for beginning to end. So I'm rambling. I'm excited. I can't wait for you to play this game that I've been working so long on. So please go wishlist on Steam, Toby's Topsy Tale. It'll come out October 17th. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. I just got to like 2,500, 2,600 now, and I can't wait to keep making new content for you. I also want to make a tutorial series. I want to do more live streaming. I'm a firm believer that you can do anything if you put your mind to it and you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn. So I'm 3 Gnomes. Thank you so much for your support, and if no one's told you today, or if you need to hear it, you can do anything.